Stay connected as we discuss shared passions and firsthand experiences intended to enlighten, entertain, and encourage you to try new things. This is not a how-to, this is a why you should. Welcome to the You Should podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the You Should podcast. However you're watching or listening, we truly appreciate you. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms at the You Should cast. All right, Mike, who's on tap for tonight?
Today's guest doesn't just sharpen steel, he sharpens tradition. When he walks into the forge, the fire bows out of respect. They once asked him to host Forged in Fire. He chose to compete instead. By day, he pilots the yellow land ship full of tiny humans, and by night, he turns scrap metal into works of art that could possibly survive the apocalypse and look classy while doing it. A former high school custodian with the soul of an artist and the hands of a blacksmith, he turned his sparks of interest into molten passion, forging a hobby into a small business. He's as fluent in leatherwork as he is in metallurgy. He doesn't just make knives, he creates legacy. So grab a cold beverage, because today we're talking about making knives with Daniel Pantoja.
So Daniel, thanks for coming in today. Mike and I, we've been talking about it for, I think since we booked you, just a cool topic to just learn and talk about knife making and everything that goes with that. I don't know anything about making knives. Do you know anything?
A little bit. Like, I used to love to watch Forged in Fire. Like, that was my thing. And I'm super interested in the process, but yeah, I've never done it.
So what got you interested in making knives?
Funny enough, it was partly Forged in Fire. So I started knife smithing about the same time when the show came out. But before that,
What is Forged in Fire?
Forged in Fire is a competition show. Like, it's structured like a chef show.
Mm-hmm.
They have 4 contestants. They give you a challenge, and it varies. And then by elimination, one's left.
So you have to like make a certain type of knife or sword.
Yeah, correct. They always have different challenges, and I started YouTubing. I went on YouTube to see the process, but not how to make it. And then when that show came out, I was like, I can do that. I studied art in college right after the military. I studied art, and but I started painting, drawing, and it was just a creative outlet. And then I learned how to weld at the same college. I loved it, and I was like, you know what? There's something I could do here that combines both, and that was that.
Wow, that's super cool. I mean, to go from that to actually trying to make knives. So you see the show, right? You're watching YouTube and you're getting interested. From that interest to actually saying, hey, I'm going to start making some knives. What did that process entail?
Well, okay, so like I had the interest, of course. I was already watching or researching how to do it. But then I had like a medical emergency come up. I had a tumor and it grew really fast. It got kind of scary, and it caused me a lot of nerve damage. It gave me 2 months off of work, which I've never had as an adult time off work. So I was like, I'm not going to get sad. I'm going to do something positive. So I was like, all right, how do I make a forge? So I got a coffee can, and I got plaster of Paris and a butane torch that you buy anywhere. I stuck it in there, and I made the ugliest knife you'll ever see. Ugly.
Wow.
And then from there, I was like, you know what? I know you've talked about how not to spend too much money on hobbies when you're starting out. I did the same thing. I little by little upgraded this and that, but I try to do everything bare bones, old school. I wanted to keep a tradition alive, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do things traditional. And just little by little, I was like, if I get not butane, maybe a small handheld propane torch, it'll be hotter. So I used that. And as I went down the line, I just started upgrading equipment, and then knives started becoming usable, but still kind of ugly.
So what did that first knife look like?
The first knife
was it what you expected, or was it you're like, this isn't?
I made it with the angle grinder, the little can forge, and I basically ground it on my lap. I didn't have a workbench even.
Wow.
So it was very ugly, not even usable.
So you get that first knife. You're like, hey, you know what? I actually made one, right? You got the components together to make that, and then how did you get from that to then really kind of start to hone in on the craft and keep doing, and continuing to make different knives?
So as the first season of Forged in Fire came out, like I'd watch week by week, and I was like, you know what? Okay, I kind of see what they're doing there. I could probably do that. And so I challenged myself to make something that they were doing. So I was like, you know what? They're using railroad spikes. Let me try that.
Right.
So I found some railroad spikes. Oh, and also half of the fun of knife making is just being resourceful. So I was like, you know what? Where can I get this on the cheap? Or how can a lot of the things are I swear I barter with people. So I was like, how can I get my hands on that? Well, I'll trade us, what I have for that. And throughout my career, that's what I've been doing. Just being resourceful, not spending a ton of money. And I've met a lot of great people doing that. Like, I mean, there's always somebody that needs something and we'll trade. And I swear it comes back tenfold. I always get more out of it because I at least get experience out of it.
Right.
What equipment and tools do you need to start?
Basic equipment you'll need is you'll need a way to heat your metal. You want to hit like 1600 degrees. That's where metal becomes malleable, about 1600 degrees. You're going to need some kind of way to grind it.
What's the heat source to get it up that hot?
So I use propane.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do talk about tradition a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally, it'd be coal, but that also brings an element of error. You can, believe it or not, you can overcook steel, and coal gets really hot, and it's really easy to overcook. So I took that element out. I'm not patient enough to like really get to that temperature by coal, and you also have to fan it a certain way. So I took that element out, and I just went with propane. But
what does that look like? What that's heating up?
It's just think about your backyard grill, just a 5-gallon tank.
Mm-hmm.
But I made my own forge. I went to a knife show once, and I went and I saw that the forge they were selling was like $1,000. And I talked to the guy that made it, and I was like, do you guys sell like a cheaper version? He's like, no. So he's like, what do you use? I was like, I use mortar cement, bricks. I insulated it, and I bought a burner off of Etsy for like $5, and that's what I use. And he's like, what temperatures can you get? And I said, I can access 3,000. He's like, oh, you're doing fine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what is the forge?
So a forge is basically the oven. It's my heat source. There's lots of ways to heat. I use the most efficient way, and I made it myself, mind you. So I hollowed out a propane tank, insulated it, and I used one burner. And the burner, funny enough, it is from Etsy, but the guy that sold it is in my hometown. So.
No way.
Yeah, I was like, I could probably knock on the
that's cool.
Yeah, and it's a really efficient way to use it. My headphones are falling.
That's all right.
It's a really efficient way to use propane because the very first, I'm probably on my 5th forge at this point, but the first few, I mean, they would use propane so fast. It was not an efficient way to work. And the problem with burning propane really fast is the tank freezes. So you got to kind of, and it's all to do with, it was the plumbing, but also the jet. I did it myself and it didn't come out right. So when I bought that guy's kit, it wasn't $5. His kit was 15. I mean, it's an easy entry.
That's crazy. That's all it costs.
From 5 to 15.
Yeah.
It was an upgrade.
Yep.
Because I feel like you'd have to spend a couple $1,000s to get all that equipment.
No.
To make knives, swords, all these different objects.
I mean, like anything you can. I mean, you can go out and get top of the line anything. Like for instance, the grinder was hand built by myself too, but it really was not a good way. I mean, another thing too is I was using like belts that weren't standard size, so it was really hard to find the grinding belt. So I finally went with the standard 2x72, and that's the only thing I spend like a good amount of money on. That's a professional grinder, but other than that, it's all handmade tools that I've tinkered with and through trial and error got right.
So you really learned to use the tools that you had available to you.
Correct, and that's part of the love. Like I mean, not all blacksmiths are knifesmiths, but all knifesmiths are blacksmiths. So part of the fun is making your own tools. So I mean, yes, but they're all like handmade and not the prettiest, but yeah, handmade tools is part of the fun.
And when you start making, when you first started making the knives, was there a mentor that was local, or was there a club that you got involved with, or is it really just you're just watching shows and YouTube stuff and trial and error?
No, I sought out a mentor. There's just nobody locally. I had one friend that was nice enough to invite me to a shop once, but just for one day. And it was I used that like as a way to see what kind of tools I really do need, because he had a professional setup. But yeah, there was a tiny bit of gatekeeping in the community. I haven't dealt with them enough to say that there is, but so I was like, you know what, I'm my own resource, so I'll find a way to do it. And it's been like just a journey of love. I've been I'll try something out. One thing I really do is if somebody orders a knife that I'm not familiar with, especially if it's a traditional Japanese knife, I just won't do it. That's a tradition I don't know, so I kind of stay in my lane with that. But if it's a knife that it doesn't like interrupt somebody's traditions, I'll first make a test knife, and if I can pull it off, then I'll sell the knife. But it's always just if I practice enough and feel confident, I'll sell it. If not, I'll just and I'll keep it. And I have so many knives at my house because they're just that's how I practice.
Right.
So.
Do you ever just sometimes pick up a knife and just like throw it to see if it'll stick?
Oh yeah.
In the wall. And see, like Mike's laughing. He thought that was a stupid question. Like you would be like, no, I've never done that. He really was thinking that, but you do that, right?
Of course.
Like and does it? When you get them?
So I have like a bunch of blanks, right? Like I can't do anything with them.
Right.
So I took off the edge, I put an extra pointy tip, and then they're throwing knives.
Yeah.
And I just paint them. I spray paint them so I don't lose them.
Right.
Yeah, but I have a whole bunch. I throw them at a tree stump.
Right.
It's fun.
Oh no.
Have you ever made a Chinese star?
I have in the beginning. I did it just for fun. I just there was no market for it, so I was like, just for fun. I did stuff for fun all the time. But
so I don't know if you're old enough, but back in the 80s, Chinese stars were huge. So when I'm like 12, 13, every kid wanted a Chinese star, was trying to get Chinese stars, nunchucks. You know what I mean? Like the switchblades. And my brother and I got our hands on a couple, right? They were only like that big. I think like a local shop was selling them, like the Army Navy store, right? Was selling them, and my dad would take us and we would get them. You probably missed that, but that was the rage. Every kid, right, was trying to get their hands on a Chinese star.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was there for that.
Were you? Okay, so you were there, right?
Yes.
So you had that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I feel like are they like a good home defense? Like it's not like in the movies where you can just be at the top of the stairs and fling it down and it all just goes right in the guy's forehead.
No, it is. So we bought some. We bought some up at Kern. I sent you a picture.
Yeah, you did.
I saw them at where did I get them? I got them at the Army Navy store.
Yeah,
I have one up at Kern. We picked them up and we set some wood up in the back and we're throwing them. And it was not like, as easy as you would think. You may get a false sense of security when you're throwing them into drywall, because drywall is like,
pretty
super easy, right? Like you can screw up and still stick it in drywall. But trying to throw it into we had some railroad ties, which are fairly soft. Like you should be able to stick it in there, and it was not as easy as you would hope. Yeah.
I feel like, do you ever go axe throwing?
No, I've made a few tomahawks. Those are really fun to throw. But they're when I was making them when I was practicing how to forge weld, which is when you fuse the metal with the heat of the oven. So I have a few of those. They're fun, but because I had so many clients over the years, I stopped making things for fun. So I took a little break from selling, and I'm right now making things for fun, which is nice. I just forgot how fun it was to just be creative and make something that's in your mind.
That's super cool.
Yeah, so I might make one soon.
How long have you been making knives at this point?
Let's see. So for 10 years, about 10 years. I can remember because that's when I had my surgery. So it's been 10 years. But the first 5 years was completely just setting up my small workshop and practicing. And at the beginning, so my goal from the beginning was to get on Forge and Fire. I wanted to get on the show. So all I did was practice. I even practiced their time frame. I noticed that they had like 1 hour competitions, 2 hour, 3. So I practiced making a knife in 1 hour. Then I practiced in 2 hours. And then, first 5 years was all practice. Knives were not very pretty. Most of them were I just gave them out to my friends, But then right before the 5 year mark, I auditioned, and then I auditioned again, and I kept getting feedback from them and callbacks.
So when you were auditioning, is that a live audition in the studio, or are you sending in a video?
Oh no, I'm just there. It's through video call. But I passed the first few auditions. Everything was on track, and I was practicing so hard. I was practicing every day. I mean, I'm talking about swinging the hammer until I couldn't anymore every day. And then COVID shut everything down, right? So I was like, okay, they told me that production shut down, and and thank you, but no thank you. So I was like, okay. So I was like, I can finally stop practicing. I mean, there's nothing to practice for. So I spent a whole year of COVID alone, listening to podcasts, not working on knives at all. And then
was that break, do you think, like just a needed healthy break, or were you missing?
I missed it. Mm-hmm. I was sad. I was like, there's nobody. I can't interact with anybody to get ideas or sell or trade. So I just shut it down. Then out of nowhere they called me, and they're like, we have a small window to tape the show. Are you available? I said, yep.
Wow.
But the only bad part though was I spent the whole year by myself without interacting with people, without practicing. It was in Connecticut. I flew to Connecticut. They taped the show under really weird conditions because it was COVID time. So we weren't allowed to be with the other cast or, You know, I was able to talk to the other knife smiths in a trailer through the wall. We couldn't even talk face to face.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a little bit of a cheap
Yeah.
experience, but I mean, it's not nobody's fault. But and the other bad part was I had practiced so hard, but when the show came, I was way out of practice. So
it's almost like if you don't say yes, they could have
Yeah.
never called back,
Exactly.
right? It's
Yeah.
one of those.
yeah. And here's another funny part too: is the settings there are professional. They have professional equipment that I haven't used to this day. I mean, I'm talking about like $10,000 power hammer and, you know, hydraulic press. I've never even seen it. And before they'd give you a shop tour, so they'd show you how everything operates, and you know. But on that occasion, they give you a little iPad and they let you play once, and then that's it. That was your shop tour. So I didn't know.
So what was that like when, you know, obviously you're rusty, you haven't practiced or done anything in a year. You get this call, you're on this show, it's being filmed, it's going to be on TV, and to top it all off, they give you all this equipment you've never used before. Were you like, holy?
I felt like a fish out of water. And
Yeah.
the other thing too is my main goal was to meet their host, Will Willits,
Yeah.
and they recast him. I didn't know.
Dang.
Their new host is really cool, but my goal was to meet Will Willits.
Right.
So it was just, honestly, I was out of sorts. And then so my forge is tiny and it faces me, so I know what distance to be at, and I always wear protective gear. Especially a hat. I always wear a hat. And so for the show we can wear hats. So I'm lined up.
Is that because they just want to get like the full your face
Yeah,
and
and
reactions?
logos and yeah.
Yeah.
So so we're filming and I'm having my own troubles because the other thing too is my challenge was to work with 1 inch by 1 inch cubes of 1080 with.
Do they tell you before you go on?
No.
It's okay. So you have no idea what
No.
the challenge is going to be.
No, so the challenge was we drew something out of a barrel, and that's when you found out. So I drew a railroad spike because I love railroad spikes. But at the end of it, there was 6 1 inch by 1 inch cubes, and you had to fuse them all into a samurai pattern. So so that already was like, oh man, this is gonna be so hard. And then so I got down to draw my pattern on the floor with chalk because you need to hit dimensions. I had to be 13 inches. So I drew it out, and as I kneeled down, I burnt my arm so bad with the tongs.
Oh,
Because
shoot.
yeah, I was trying to rush. So I didn't say anything. I was like, I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
It hurt so bad though. But then you check temperature by vision. There's parameters. Some people use them. I don't know, hardly anybody uses them. So you can tell by the color of orange or yellow that your metal is. So I'm checking the metal, and I stick my head in there and I burn my hair off. And seriously, I was
Did they like rush in where they're like
No.
10 people? No.
No, I'm not joking. I wanted to cry.
Oh
'Cause
my God.
I brushed my hair and I had a handful of burnt hair, and I was like,
What?
I'm like bald right now.
And at that point, did you?
So then that's when I called the medic, but it was totally vain. I just wanted to see if I had hair. So
how bad is it?
the guy goes like, dude, we got to tape up your arm. And I was like, I don't care about my arm. Do I have hair left? He's like, yeah, you're fine. So during my interview, you could see, I'm like, I'm honestly like on the verge of tears because they filmed the thing right after they announced I lost. So I was like, yeah. So then I'm trying to get to the interview. I didn't have much to say. I was like, just trying to hold
Right.
back my emotions.
Yeah.
And I was burnt like in 2 places. But yeah,
Dude, you got your money's worth. Might not be the right, but you got the full experience.
Right.
you know, like honestly, my goal was to be on that show 5
Yeah.
years worth of
Dude, that's
trying.
amazing. That alone is amazing.
And that show changed the whole trajectory of my life. So how could I get mad?
Right.
But just in that occasion, I mean, they told you lose, and you go right to a camera and talk, and you're just like,
Right.
can I have a minute? You know?
Well, that's why I love, we watch a lot of reality TV. I mean, I love Survivor. That's like my favorite show of all time. But they get you right at those moments. And you see why,
Well, they want
that's
that
what they
emotion,
want. They
right?
want that
They-
emotion, right?
yeah.
They don't want you to like to 2 hours later.
You know what? What I learned, reality TV is real. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
always thought everything was scripted,
Right.
but like they threw us at hot metal with machinery we never touched. That's real.
Have you ever reached out to Will Willits?
No, I was watching. He had an explanation of why he left the show.
Sure.
And I thought it was his preference, but it wasn't, and
Right.
it was heartbreaking. But I would love to talk to him.
No. So I know like he's done some podcasts, right?
Yeah.
He has an amazing background as a
Yep.
PJ and,
Yep.
you know, all of his experience. You have that commonality of your story's so interesting. You know, you waited so long. You're an amateur knife maker. You got on the show. He was part of why you wanted to go on there. Like,
Oh yeah,
I would recommend, like, dude, reach out to the guy. Social media, with all of the negatives that is associated with social media today, there are some positives. People are attainable. You could theoretically connect with that guy.
Yeah, I would love to.
He's and he seems like he would sit in your chair right now and he would just, tell us stories and talk. He seems very approachable. I would seriously recommend reaching out to him.
I mean, we're a well-listened to podcast,
We
Mike.
are.
There's
We
no
are.
reason we couldn't make one call.
That's true. There's
make
tens
this
of people
happen.
listening out there. Like, we may actually have someone that knows Will. So if you're listening and you know Will Willits, we need his contact information. So drop it in the chat.
I've done that so many times, just had friends wanting to do something or reconnect. And I've started the ball rolling, and I would say like 18 out of the 20 times it's happened.
Oh.
And some were really out like, oh, I haven't talked to my dad in 25 years. And I just kept on it, bought people plane tickets and called the dad. Like that was one, made it happen. And then I've had random ones just wanting to do something or wanting to meet someone. I really feel this world is 2 degrees of separation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you should.
I should. Yeah, I would love to.
That would be fun if we could make that happen.
We'll see what we can do. We will flex our half a muscle that we'll have today, and we'll see if we can make that connection.
With our tiny little, footprint that we have.
Yeah, I would love that. My whole goal is to meet him. I wanted to talk to him.
Really?
But even if I could, or if he was still hosting, the conditions of COVID wouldn't have let us anyway.
It would have been difficult then, right? Like for sure, with all the restrictions.
All the judges were like, I loved them because I learned how to do what I do from the show.
Yeah.
But what we got to do was wave at them from like 50 feet away, and I was
that's what sucks. You're a super fan, right? Like you were legitimately a super fan of the show. You get selected to go on the show, and then it just wasn't. Unfortunately, it was.
Yeah, there's no complaining. It's like I'm telling you, half of what I do is just being resourceful. So I was like, you know what, I didn't pivot and like I didn't capitalize on fame. That's not what I wanted. But what I did do is I didn't stop selling knives for like 5, maybe longer, at least 5 years. I continued having sales back to back to back.
Yeah.
And I only stopped for personal reasons. I had an injury that made me stop, but yeah, I can't complain about that show. Number one, I learned from there. That was my biggest resource. And number two, it was my goal and I attained it. So you can't get mad.
Amazing.
So my next question is, I think it's kind of dovetailing onto what you just said, is after the show, did that spark you into, hey, now I'm back into making knives, the show?
There was no breaks afterwards. So
that's awesome. That's amazing.
Afterwards, I had a friend I made in college. His name's Ose. He reached out randomly and he's like, hey, was that you on TV? I was like, yeah, it was. So he's like, you want to get a coffee? And I was like, yeah, an old friend, sure. I showed up and this guy had like a laptop with him. He gave me like a professional presentation. He does graphic design. And he's like, what's your aesthetic? What's your favorite color? I chose the cross swords because that was my unit in the Army, cross swords. And then I kind of told him, and this guy came back with business cards and T-shirts. And I was like, okay, this looks like a real operation now.
Dude, that's so cool.
So I was like, I'm serious. I hit the ground running. I mean, that's when I opened up sales. I never sold before. So I did a soft open. I had so many people wanting stuff. So I was like, okay, well, now let's start selling. And I treated it like a serious business, but also with under my conditions. Cause it's like, I'm making things that can be used as weapons. So I did things like the way I want to. So I work with the correct mindset. I don't work angry. I don't put anything bad into my knives. Cause I mean, most of the stuff I make for a kitchen, it's a chef knife, but could be used as a weapon. So, I always, the people that are my customers, I tell them if it takes a little bit longer, it's just because the conditions were right and it couldn't work. But I have to put something correct into the world. And if it's a gift, I always try to charge like very little, like a penny. So it's like, you don't sever friendships with a knife. You don't, so you have to sell it.
Right.
But yeah, I capitalized on the momentum, but not for fame. But
I think that's, what we all talk about is if you can take a passion, something you love to do, and if you can turn that into a little business, side hustle, whatever we want to call it, like that's such an amazing win.
Yeah.
Like how cool is that? And you're getting to spread all that to these other people that are getting to enjoy something that you created.
Yeah. So at the very end, when I told you I got really emotional and the cameras were on me and I was like, I was trying to scramble to not cry. I just told myself, I was like, did you lose? You didn't lose, because at the very end of the day, you're going to be in your backyard working. So it's like, that's all I want to do. So I was like, in any given day, I'm going to be in my backyard working. And that's all I want to do.
So when you exit the show, right? Like you didn't make the cut and they're like, okay, we're going to continue with a different contestant. Do you get to watch the
Yeah,
end
do
of
you
the
get to
show
see the
and see the
show?
winner?
No. So what happened was
Did you take anything and just like throw it all? No, nothing. Like no
So,
little like take a knife and throw it into like the thing.
No. The contestants are usually pretty cool. They're nice. Like it's not like a competition where people are petty and fighting against each other.
Right.
So no, the one time we got to talk to each other was we got a shuttle to the hotel, same hotel, and so I got to talk to them there, and I was talking to other guys. They're real cool. And,
Did you ever say like, dude, I'm gonna bury you right now? I am.
No,
gonna, like,
they were super
done.
nice guys. And,
Nice guys.
And I gotta say, like I said, reality TV is real. They were really talented. On a good day, I could have maybe came close, but they were much better than me. More polished, But no, so I got to talk to them, and the guy that came in third, he had a way worse knife than I did. He just met the length requirements.
Gotcha.
And he told me, he's like, I can't believe you're making me do this again. He wanted to lose, and then because I was gonna have a free day in New York, which is cool, But there are contestants who like break down on camera, and I'm like, that's what I did not want to do. Like as bad as I think my blade was like, I couldn't fuse the metal. I couldn't fuse it.
Was that because of a time crunch? Like, are you seeing this clock like come down? You're like, oh.
It was that, but it was a bad strategy on my part. I think what I tried to do is I stacked all the cubes and then try to press them down. Oh no, I tried to hammer them down by hand. It was the wrong approach. So I had to scrap a lot of material, and I didn't have enough material. So what I had to do was whatever I had left. I think I had 3 cubes left and 2 railroad spikes. So I finally got them to fuse. That's another thing too. When you fuse metal, it's tricky because it looks like it works at times, and then all of a sudden it just does not work. And it could be oxidation. It could just be not the high. It's usually the temperature's not high enough. So I started working the pneumatic hammer, which I've never used, and it's working really well. And then all of a sudden it splits. Cool. So then I was just like, that's when I was just like, oh man, that's nothing I could do. So I had to cut that off. That's like 2/3 of material. So then I was just like, I had 30 minutes left, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna quit, man. Like so I just told myself, don't quit. And the other thing too is usually during the show, the judges are making eye contact, or it looks like it on camera, and they're giving you a pep talk. Well, Willis might have been like, don't quit now, We had masks on, and
you know what? I'm blaming Will for not being there. I feel like if he's there, Daniel has a totally different outcome, Mike.
I don't think we could blame him, but I think that if Will was there,
a factor. Are you willing to say it was a factor?
Yes.
I'm have to agree with you.
Because I feel like Daniel, 5 years, loves the show, loves, Will, and wanted to meet him. So again, and you already had all these factors, the COVID factors. He gets on Will's, I think that pep talk.
It's true.
Could have been.
So we can blame the producers 100%. The producer of the show. Yeah,
producers.
For sure. Not Will, but the producers for sure.
I'll blame them, but I'll also say I'll gladly go back on.
Indeed.
But yeah, so anyways, I had to not enough material. I stretched it really far with the hammer. Like honestly, it was like amazing to use that equipment. Right. And it was just a fraction of an inch short. So I think I did pretty good. I mean,
they came out and they do a measurement, and you're just like, maybe you're like 12 and 7/8.
Yep.
And
the judge that judged me was David Baker, and he's another person I really, really admire. So I was like,
you're like, dude, give me like the 1/8 of an inch.
Well, I think, and I've seen the show a few times. If you don't meet the parameters,
right?
Like they're looking for reasons to cut people, right?
Yeah.
And
they have to, right? Obviously,
if you don't meet the basic parameters, they're going to take somebody else's way worse product.
Yeah,
like yours could have been beautiful and perfect, but if it's a millimeter short of what the parameters, you lose.
Yeah.
Oh, but here's the funny part too, though. The camera shot, him measuring, and then they showed it on camera up close. Yeah. That wasn't my knife. That was a better looking knife, so I was like, it's fine.
It's a win. Take the win.
They did.
That's fantastic.
They did the substitute. Hey, you want another one?
Yeah, but the whole experience, it changed my whole life. So how could I get mad? And I feel
that's a huge win.
Yeah.
I mean, for any of us, just local, like just hobbyists, or you're just doing something, to be able to get on a national TV show like that, that's super cool.
So I want to back up. Like, we're not a how-to, but I think it would be interesting to talk about, like, what does it take to take a railroad spike and turn it into a knife, right? Mark, am I screwing up your
No, not at all.
Okay.
So not every metal could be made a knife. I mean, you can sharpen them, you can try to harden it, but not every metal hardens. So you have to start with the right material first. So I always work with high carbon metal. What I always look for, because half of the material I use is like repurposed. Yeah. So I tested to see what the carbon content is by grinding it and look at the sparks. The sparks have to be complex and long, and if they're short and really simple, I don't touch it. Although you could use it though. Like, let's say you find a billet of low carbon or mild steel, and you want to do a sanmai, which is a sandwich. You sandwich high carbon.
Let me stop you real quick. So billet is just a piece of metal?
Yeah, just a flat bar of metal.
Okay.
It can come in round pieces, but flat's best for knives.
Okay.
So if it's low carbon, it still has use. You can use it, but if you're gonna do a mono steel knife, which is what I use, just one steel, I just use high carbon, and half of it I buy. After I lost the competition, I lost with 1080. I only use 1080. It's what I use because I want to perfect it. So
right.
1080 or 5160 is my favorite, and that's spring steel, and that stuff you can find anywhere. And people, half of my deals are just trades.
Like literally like springs. I'm thinking like car springs, like in old cars, leaf springs.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, same.
And that stuff it's tough. That material is really tough. I mean, it lasts forever. You have to have some maintenance to it because it's high carbon. It's not stainless, but that's durable stuff.
And when you say maintenance, that means high carbon. It has the potential to rust.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
It takes a little bit of maintenance. You just have to make sure you don't put it away wet. And when you do use it, you clean it with whatever's. If you're gonna use food safe oil. If not, whatever oil's your preference. But it's tough.
Okay, so you have two steels. The higher carbon, like what's carbon doing for me in a steel?
Carbon is really hard. It just helps retain edge.
So carbon meaning strength.
Yeah, like for instance, you have a cutting board, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the more you use it, little by little, you're dulling your knife, right? So what you really want to do is have the hardest material possible, so you can retain your edge longer.
Right.
Because that's the old stainless steel. It just dulls really fast, so you have to always hone it.
Dude, we have like the worst knives. Before you go, I mean,
this is a solvable problem.
They're so bad. They're so bad.
Okay, so the higher the carbon, the harder the knife is going to be, meaning when you sharpen it, it should retain its edge longer.
Yep, and that's the fun part about cooking with like high carbon steel. It's probably preferable by chefs for that reason. It's just it retains your edge longer.
But then when you go to sharpen it, it's probably going to take you longer to sharpen it because the steel is harder?
Not really. No, when I sharpen knives, I always just use a really old belt, and I don't grab the metal. I just kind of glide it. Gotcha. I don't take a lot of material off. So it's every knife's pretty similar to sharpen. So,
but for the average Joe who carries pocket knives,
do you carry a pocket knife, Daniel?
Usually I do, yeah.
And what use? Like during, let's say an average day, you're just
wait.
out and about.
So Mark, me and Mark go back and forth about carrying a pocket knife.
So I am a non-pocket knife carrier.
Oh.
Mike carries one.
And this is the perfect segue. Hold on, you didn't know this was coming. Go. This is the perfect segue because this is our knife episode.
Yep.
So Mark is always busting my chops. Like, what are you carrying a knife for? Like, what do you use a knife for?
I've never once thought, oh man, I wish I had a pocket knife on me.
Oh. So the last podcast we did, I challenged him like, you should carry a pocket knife for 30 days and see.
And then Mike doesn't carry one for 30 days.
I didn't agree to that.
No, but I feel like that would be cool because how many times would come up?
It would be like you asking you to not wear your watch for 30 days. I don't need 30 days to tell me it's going to suck because I always want to look at my watch that's missing.
Okay,
so I don't agree.
So on a day-to-day basis, typically, when do you find yourself?
So for those that can't see, I just put it on the table.
Let's see.
I have 4 pocket knives that I had at home
one time.
that Mark gets to pick. And now we have our episode expert here that can weigh in.
We have an expert.
Which would be the possible best selection for Mark.
This is so good.
This is good. I knew you're going to be excited.
God, this is so good.
So I have different variations.
Oh, look at Daniel's he's checking those out. He's okay. All right. Let's see.
When I judge a pocket knife, I'm looking at ergonomics, right? The comfort. How much does it weigh?
And
right?
Daniel's going to pick this one for me. So you go over the floor with him.
Okay.
He will make the selection, and that's the one every day.
Yeah.
When I leave the house, keys, cell phone, wallet, and one of these knives.
So the 4 we have to pick are a couple different brands, a few different brands. So the first one is the lightest by far. This is a Gerber. I like a deep carry clip. I like the clip to come all the way to the end, so it sits really low.
I don't have to wear that on my belt buckle, do I?
No, put it in your pocket. And then my thing is now, because I've had a few, is always ease of open, right?
Yep.
So I want a one-handed open.
For sure.
This one is the hardest to open one-handed, though it can be done. So this one's super light.
Well done.
It's not the sharpest. I would think this steel is probably the crappiest steel out of all of them because I can't sharpen this one super well. Like it's good enough,
right?
But it's not like, we're men, right? The testosterone, like we want it ninja sword sharp,
Yes.
right? Like I want it to
Yeah,
cut.
when you do the backhanded throw,
Correct.
you
Oh,
want
yeah.
it to stick right
Yeah.
in, right?
Right.
Okay. All right.
The coolest knife thing ever has got to be The Bodyguard, old movie. When
Kevin Costner?
do you remember this? Do you remember the scene?
I don't
Okay.
know. Thank
So-
God I don't remember.
So they go back to Kevin Costner's place, right? And you know, Whitney Houston's trying to seduce him or whatever. And she's looking at his stuff and he has this old samurai sword. She pulls out the samurai sword and she's like swinging it around her. And he doesn't say anything. He doesn't make a big deal out of it. And, you know, he comes walking up to her because it's supposed to be like a sexy scene. And so he's trying to get close and she like takes the sword and she points it at him like right against his chest. And he stops. And he grabs the silk scarf off of her neck and he pulls it and he throws it in the air. And they show this silk scarf just like slowly falling down. And as it lands on the sword, it just slices into like, that's how sharp the sword was. Yeah, exactly. That's the reaction you get. You're like, holy crap. That's yeah. So
What's your favorite knife scene in a movie?
So I'm thinking of, again, top of my head, like a Bruce Lee movie. My brother and I watched all of them. I mean, there was some really cool Bruce Lee. Do you have one that like sticks out to you? Yeah.
Have you guys seen The Hunted with Benicio del Toro?
yeah.
So he forges a knife while he's on the run,
Right.
and the knife it's called a tracker knife. I made one for fun, but that's a cool scene. I think he found like a leaf spring in the woods, and then he made a little forge out of a fire. I mean, not realistic, but pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
So
there was a bitch and knife fight scene in The Hunted, right?
There
Was it
was.
him and Tommy Lee Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a really cool knife fighting's like crazy scary.
I think when my brother and I got into knives was during First Blood and Rambo. And Rambo had that 12-inch legit, what would you call that knife?
Like a survival knife.
Survival knife. And we wanted one so bad, right? My brother went full Rambo. Like he's 3 years younger than me. So let's say when that came out in 1984, I'm like 13, he's like 10, right? And my dad, because we had our hunting license at this time, like 85, 86, he each bought us a survival knife. You know, again, Army, Navy, nothing fancy.
$15.
But that to us, because it had the serrated, like on the back, right? It had the little, what do you call that? Like
Serrated, yeah.
Yeah, serrated on the back. And we thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Oh man, the first time I ever said no to a client, I use my Instagram like a catalog. I don't. There's like maybe 1 or 2 pictures of me, but it's usually just my knives on display. So I had a customer reach out to me, and she's like, "I want the Rambo knife. I want it." And then she's like, "I want the exact dimensions." And I was like, at first I was like, "That's cool. It's a cool challenge." And then I was like, as they were messaging me, I was like, "This person sounds young." I was like, "How old are you?" She said she's like 17 or 16, and then I was just like, I don't think I could. But then my advice was like, if you want something like that, big 5,
right?
You could buy one for like $40, and that's I'd have to charge you way more than that. So I was like,
right,
I don't think I can make you.
And it'll come with the little matches and the tree saw and the compass and all that
You're right.
crap.
The matches, the compass, like
none of it's worked. None of it worked, but it was in there, and you felt super cool.
That's cool.
All right, so Gerber.
Okay, so that's number 1. That's like item 1.
Yeah, pros, super lightweight, and it has a deep carry.
Yeah, this one's cool. It's light.
Very light.
But I feel like on average, I feel like the Gerber doesn't retain like an edge. I've had lots of multi-tools and it always goes bad. And I've always have to like I always resharpen them.
So I'm new to these guys and I really like them. These are not wearing my glasses.
CVV?
CRKT?
Oh, okay.
CRKT. Yeah, I was right.
See, that's when you're getting into super steel. Like the newer ones, Civivi, they have, it's more advanced than I could explain, but they have stainless steel that retains an edge pretty well. So that might be a good choice.
So this knife is probably the heaviest of the 4, right? Again, deep carry clip, which I'm a fan of. And for me, the opening is super, super nice. Has a little thumb throw. It opens right up. One-handed operation. This one works very, very well. So this is a good knife, but it is on the heavier side.
Right, let's see. Daniel's checking that out. All right. He's examining it right now. Does a little...
I check with my fingernail to see
I like
how sharp it is.
Yeah, a little sharpness test.
This one's a good option.
Okay, that's a good option.
I
feel
like that's my second
that's
carry.
the leader in the clubhouse right now.
So
at this point,
that's my second favorite knife of all the ones that I have today.
And you're willing to give that up for a month.
Well, yeah. So that's not my primary carry, but that's always my go-to.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna not carry the one I always carry.
Mm-hmm.
So second option here is again same brand, CRKT. This is their little like stiletto almost. So
That's like a stub nose, like little
Well,
22
you would
that
think,
you
but
carry in your
it has
boot.
a great open.
Does have a
right?
good open.
It has a nice long blade. My buddy Jeff McCabe, friend of the show, he got me this because I'm always searching for a knife I can carry with dress pants, right?
Oh,
So I
cool.
don't want to carry like a big bulky knife when I'm wearing like slacks, like I'm getting dressed up, right? It's a formal occasion.
Right.
I always want to have a blade on me. I want a real thin knife.
So if you're going to see a show,
yeah,
like for your 20th anniversary next month, that would be the one you would take.
if I'm wearing,
You wouldn't
dress
just say,
slacks-
you know what, I'm just gonna leave the knives at home.
no,
That guy, he has to
No.
go. All right.
Why would
You
you
know-
ever leave a knife at home?
you
Like
know
you have a
something-
pocket, right?
Mark, I have a knife I take on nice occasions.
Okay.
It's not assuming it's a open nail.
Okay.
So it's like a little French knife. It's very small, and at the end it rotates to lock. I think they use it for like eating cheese. I don't even know, but that's my fancy knife. That's one I take when I go.
All right. So let me ask you this: you're married.
Uh-huh.
You and your wife are going out to a nice dinner. You're going to see a show, and you're going to go home. Would you feel awkward if you didn't have a knife on you, or no?
Yeah. Well, so I just switched jobs, right?
Yeah.
In this job, I'm not allowed to carry a knife.
Right.
So every day I'm without. I'm like,
Okay.
I always
So
think about-
regardless of the event,
Right.
you're still
Yes.
carrying. Okay.
So
all
the
right.
last few knives or weeks I haven't had a knife, and I've been going without. Like,
How many times have you reached down
All the time.
and it's not there?
yeah, all the
It's
time.
okay. So here's the last one.
All right. So the last
this
one.
is a buck knife.
Ooh, a buck
right?
knife.
So buck.
Nice.
So
yeah.
big name, buck knife. This is probably the best knife in the bunch when it comes to the blade. The only thing that I don't like is the clip on this one because, again, the deep carry clip would be to the top. This one, the knife is going to stick out of the pocket, which actually helps you grab it when you need it. So I like a deep carry. I mean, that's the benefit of having a knife that sticks out a little
Yeah.
bit is you can
Right.
grab it. It opens really easy with one.
Yeah.
The thumb hole here, it doesn't flip open like an assisted open like those ones. Again, you release it on the spine, but this blade is crazy sharp. It's the biggest blade of the
Yeah. That
bunch.
definitely looks out of the four.
Yeah.
Like that's.
But this is probably, I would guess, the best blade. We'll ask the expert here, but this is a good knife.
okay.
Okay, so
All right. So Daniel, now you have the four
got-
knives.
so-
You heard an explanation on all four. So you're gonna now give me, the non-knife carrying person, I'm gonna this challenge for the next 30 days. I am really gonna do this.
Okay.
I'm not just gonna not do it. All right.
right off the bat, not this
Okay.
one.
So that guy's out.
Too
yeah.
dull.
Too dull.
It's
right.
not a
Hard-
great blade.
Hard to keep.
No-
Yeah, you can't
right.
keep it sharp.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that guy's
Okay,
he's
so
out.
this would be my choice, except for
Mm.
I don't like these clips.
Oh,
The other day, not too long ago, I brushed up against my car and I scratched my
you
car.
can scratch your car.
So the ones that stick out too much, I love this knife, but I'd say not this one for that reason. And this one, it's such a cool knife. I'd carry this, but I'd say for an everyday use, you use this
Yeah.
one.
See, he went with the
You went with the buck, yeah.
yeah.
Did
the
you
biggest,
open-
baddest
dude,
one.
That
I
one's
did.
a great open too.
And that one's sharp. Oh, this one's cool.
this one's
But
sharp, yeah.
for your first knife every day, that's a good one.
All right.
Sweet, sir.
But this is a cool knife. I really would carry this.
Yeah.
No, that one looks cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this, and you know what? This isn't the other thing too. I know I was joking about it, but they don't seem too bulky or heavy.
They're not bad.
You know?
It's not like carrying a Leatherman. And I used to carry a Leatherman
Right.
for years, right? It just got to be so heavy that I would only carry it like if I would go to job walks where it's like, okay, well, I may have to open something or whatever, because I would want the features that the Leatherman had. So I still have one. I didn't bring it because you being new to this,
For sure.
it's just too heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a heavy carry.
It is.
I used to carry one daily and it's too
Yeah.
heavy.
So I was listening to a podcast and it was some Navy SEAL or something, and he was talking, and what he said made sense. He actually carries on his non-dominant side.
Oh.
Which was interesting.
Yeah.
So for me, my dominant side is the right. So I switched to the left. And his thing was, if ever he had to put on a pistol, he could draw his pistol, but he could still have access to his knife. That made sense because the pistol would cover up his pocket. The benefit of having it on your left is it doesn't scratch your car door when you're driving. So like you said, scratching your car, if anybody has experienced that, which I have too, it's a thing,
Yeah.
is you can switch to the left. Now, that would be the same as putting your watch on the opposite wrist. You're going to look at at the wrong wrist 100,000 times before you realize it's on this side.
Right.
So it took a minute, and it forced me to get dexterity with my left hand to actually open it, because your dominant hand, it was really easy, but my left hand wasn't as easy.
Yeah, there's lots of customers I take on. I try to ask a lot of questions, and if it's going to be one with a sheath, I ask where they draw, because some people, they like their gun belt
Right.
side, draw left side.
For sure.
Right.
Or there's been a few that draw from the back. I made a kind of like a horizontal belt loop, and they draw from the back. So I mean, everybody has preferences. But this is a good knife. They have these little pocket sharpeners that I carry sometimes.
Sure.
And you can keep them honed that way. Like every so often when you use them, that keeps them pretty sharp. But and I'll tell you the key to sharpening, it's all muscle memory.
Yeah.
Because like I did this at first. I'd sharpen them, and I swear I was doing such a good job, and then I'd test them out, and I couldn't get them sharp. But it's because I would get tired, and maybe I'd flinch, and I'd change the direction just a tiny bit. So over the years, I've just kept the same position over and over, and that's just the key to get them sharp. Same position over and over. So even if you do like a whetstone,
right,
if you can keep the same angle, it's like 17 degrees is perfect. If you keep it, it'll be sharp, and then you work on it being polished and pretty. But first, you have to get it sharp.
I got one of those roller sharpeners.
Those are cool.
Have you seen it? I got one for Christmas. Right. Thing's awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's quick and easy, and it's almost like, you do like 5 swipes on each side as a quick maintenance sharpen to just straighten everything out, and it's been great. That one needs to go through that. Yeah,
they also sell a kit that clamps, and it keeps the same angle, and then you pass through with some. They have 2 hands that extend. I don't have any of those. A lot of the stuff I do, I try to keep traditional.
Right.
Like for instance, when I grind, I never use a jig. I freehand everything.
Oh, wow.
Because I leave some imperfections in, because it's a one of a kind. Like,
I think that's kind of cool, right?
Yeah. And then same thing with sharpening. I like the idea of it. For me, I was like, you know what, like let's be simplistic, old school, and sharpen by hand. It took a lot of practice. But yeah, like I was telling you, I don't send out products like the knife that you showed me that your friend made was so polished. I wouldn't do that. I like some small flaws.
Yeah.
Some character.
I agree.
Rustic. That's what I like to do. But
you want it to look handmade.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. I like that look that you're talking about, Daniel, more than something that looks just kind of mass produced. And
yeah, because to be fair, you can get a pretty good knife very cheap at a sporting goods store. You can, but you can't get something like specifically made for you.
Right.
Not there. It has to be done by hand, and it takes time.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, can you run us through the forging process from design to forging it, the shape, the heat, the polish you put? Like how does that happen? What is that?
Yeah, so it's a fun process. So the beginning of it, you source your materials, right? Like I usually
And where do you usually buy your material?
So I don't have a preference, whatever's cheapest. So I
like where do you go to buy that?
So I'll go like on a Google search,
and
I'll find whatever material. 5160 is what I get for free usually. But if I'm buying like 1080, 1090, then I'll do a Google search, and like there's a company called US Steel, Amazon, whatever I find the best, cheapest price. Because I'm not at the point where I can tell like what metal is really flawed. Because what I do is when I do quench, I do test sharpness with the file. So that's the quality control. If it's not hard at that point, I just leave it.
Right.
I start over, and there's so many times where you just start over. That's why I was telling you I have so many
with
knives.
The same piece of steel or new steel.
No,
you
new
scrap
steel.
it.
Yeah. You have to. That's one thing that's like I'm pretty frugal with some stuff, but not with that. Like if it's not hitting the mark for hardness, or if I really mess up when sharpening.
Can you tell beforehand, or maybe you buy a piece of steel and it's just not quite?
No, the most frustrating part is you'll find out when you're about 75% done, and then you put in like a week of work, and then you get to like the bottom, like you probably have like a day's worth of grinding left, and you find a crack that's unfixable, and you're like, okay, start over. And funny enough, the one time I worked at a professional shop is the only time I had a knife break on me, and it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just a flawed piece of metal. So him and I, the guy's name is Steve. We worked all day, like seriously all day, and he has a nice setup, professional setup, and he even bought the steel. It was chef quality steel. I don't remember what kind it was. And we got to the quench. I'll explain later, but we got to the quench, and then we're grinding to get to the annealing process. And then I had it in my hand, and I just was flexing it, and it snapped, and that shouldn't do that.
Wow.
And I was like, man, I felt so bad, because the guy gave me his whole day, and he let me have his shop for the whole day, and I was like, he was more mad than me though. I was feeling bad for that situation, but that's the only time I had the knife snap on me at that point. But so the process is, you source your material. I really like reclaimed steel, but there's inherently going to be flaws. So you
And reclaimed steel is really what it sounds like.
yeah,
It's just
and used. And part of the reason I like it is because to get that steel, I had to hustle. I had to wheel and deal, and that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an occasion where a guy locally shut down his auto shop, and I was driving a Honda Civic, and he said, "Whatever you can carry is yours. I'm closing down doors." And I was like, "Okay." So I loaded up my thing. Like my car was dragging home, and then I called him back, and I was like, "Hey, can I come back for one more trip?" He's like, "Yeah." That still to this day, I have that stockpile of metal.
I mean, it really is that metal works. Like that steel works.
Yeah. So then you test it, right? If it's the right carbon quality,
Right.
then it's usable. So then there's tricks to some steel too. It's not all the same. So like for instance, 5160 is my preferred steel. People don't like it because it's really hard to move. It's so hard to move. It has, I mean, literally, it's spring steel and it springs, right? So what I do is I get it to like a 1600 degrees, and then I completely back it off and cool it. Then I put it back.
So is it you have your design, you're making your shape,
right?
And then is that at that point then are you forging it to
what I do, because like I said, I do things kind of traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
I usually draw out my dimensions, not my design. So like yesterday I was working on a metal or on a knife that I wanted to get to 10 inches blade length. So I drew 10 inches on my anvil, and I stretched like 7 inches into 10. And so once I got to 10, I stopped because I don't want to overwork the metal either.
Right.
So then I wanted 2.5 inches of width. So I drew that on my anvil. As I'm working it, I hit 2.5 inches, I stop. And then what I'd like to do to save the most expensive part of my process is, well, I have a grinder that uses like really expensive belts, grinding belts.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the most expensive parts. So what I try to do is I try to by hand forge the shape, which is something that a lot of people don't do because it takes a lot of effort. But that just saves.
As opposed to like grinding the shape into it.
Yeah,
you're forging the shape.
Right, like
it.
a really popular way to do things is called stock removal. So you'll draw out your shape, like your final shape. You'll draw it out on a billet, and you cut it out with the any means you want to, and then from there you just go straight to the grinder. It's a legit way to do things, but it's just not traditional, so that's not the way I do it. So, and then another thing too, that there's a misconception where you just hammer the metal as hard as you can to move it. You don't do that. You have to finesse the metal. So as you're like I told you, I have the right intentions when I'm working because I want to move the metal where I want. I don't want to put holes in it. I want to put cracks in it. So intentionally, every hit's intentional. I don't waste effort. Yeah. So, and when I get to the shape, about the shape I want, and about the goal is to reduce the width. The metal's too thick to grind. Like it'll take you all day to grind. So I try to reduce it as much as I can. And when it gets to the final shape, I try to get it as straight as possible. I usually use like a clamp or a vise. And then from there, I leave it alone, and then I start grinding.
Is there a time period where if it cools off or it's too hot? Like, is it a very finite time frame you have to get the shape that you want and the width and the thickness?
Yeah. So you really want to hit, like, especially if it's like a part of the chopping surface, like the very end of the knife's called the heel, like heel to tip. You hit that hot. 1600 degrees is preferable. So what I have to do too, most people probably do the same thing, is I heat up my anvil. So I get a torch and I heat up my anvil. I don't want to lose heat there. And so I work the metal hot. You can, like the handle part, if you're going to punch holes or something or straighten it out, you can work it a little cold, but you don't want to introduce like stress, fractures, because then at the very end of your project, you're going to see it's broken and then you have to start over. So it's worth the effort to keep working it hot. And that's where hammers come into play. Like you don't use like a drywall hammer. It has to be a hammer with the purpose to move it in the direction you want.
So there's a special hammer to move metal versus just getting like a 3-pound sledgehammer and hitting it with that.
Yeah, like if you're gonna work on it, like let's say you're making a tool, like a generic, you're just doing generic blacksmithing, and you're not gonna like because a knife, you get a knife so thin,
right?
When you quench, you're gonna have problems, right? So if you're gonna make a hammer out of a hammer, you can hit it as much as you want. I'm sure you're not gonna have too many problems, but if you're gonna go so thin like a knife is, you don't want to introduce cracks. The project's done at that point.
So is it a special hammer to do blacksmithing?
It's by preference, but I use like a cross peen, and I have a lot of hammers. A lot of people like rounding hammers. Like a farrier might use a rounding hammer, but by preference, I use the same hammer over and over. I'm just so comfortable with the weight. It's the peen is like I've I crafted it to the angle I like. So I know how to move the metal with that hammer, but it's by preference. But
Right.
yeah, I really like farriers. They have really cool hammers, and it's such a cool craft. But I couldn't use that hammer. Like I would probably just mess up my material. But they're so intentional with their movement, and they know how to move to the material to whatever they need. But I couldn't do that. I just never done that.
Define farrier.
A farrier is like a person that makes horseshoes and horses of shoes.
Mm.
But a lot of people that do our job, they're actually farriers. They work as farriers. So
Right.
if you watch the way they work so fast and so hard because they're working with a live animal that's not going to wait for you.
Right.
So I feel like in the beginning when I was learning how to strike, I copied their movement. I liked how fast they moved. And like I told you, I was practicing to be on a show. That's all I was doing. So I was like, you know what? Those guys are the fastest moving ones, so I'm going to copy them. So I strike just like them.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty smart.
Yeah.
To make that connection, right? Like this guy's moving metal. He has to do it fast because he has a live animal.
Yeah.
I'm going on a competition show. I have the same parameters.
Right.
Wow.
So how long does it take you when you start your knife making to completion? Like, what is that time frame? Like, again, once you get going.
It depends. Like if I'm really motivated and I have the time, I could probably do it start to finish in a week. But like I said, if
But what about when you're under heat? Is that like one shot?
There's been situations
Or will you put it back under heat? Oh,
no.
So when you're under heat, how long is that process?
So when the knife's under heat, you can work it over and over, but you can't work it cool though. Like you can't. 1600 degrees is when it's malleable, and if it gets, and I'm telling you, you're judging the temperature by sight. So if it starts to go from yellow to like a dull orange, then it starts to go gray. You don't work it then. You're gonna introduce stress into it. And like I said, nobody taught me, so I'm by no means a master, but I've made lots of mistakes.
But if somebody that's listening right now, and let's say they're dabbling in knife making, just through your experience, your learning lessons, what are some of the biggest learning lessons that you've gone through?
I would just say don't get discouraged. Like, I mean, the first few projects might not be the best. I mean, some people might be just so gifted, but just try it out. Don't invest a lot of money into it first. Just try out for instance, like buy a very small belt tender, a very small anvil, like for jewelry making. Try it out. You can make the cheapest forge like I did with a coffee can and like cement. I did with plaster of Paris. You can do it with anything. Spend like $100 and see what it feels like. If you make something like really cool, spend a little bit of money on forge. Then for a long time too, I used a railroad rail, and I mean, like, cost me nothing. I bartered for it too. I mean, just dive
as the anvil.
Yeah, that was my anvil.
Yeah.
And then I welded a plate on top. Now I actually have a professional anvil, which is nice, but I mean, it's not the biggest, but it's really nice. So I would just say try it with the least amount of tools and money invested. Try it out, and it might just be for you because you never know.
You never know. What's your favorite handle material?
So I always go with this one right here is Purple Heart. I just like exotic wood that's not very expensive.
When you're making a knife, just that combination of balance, grip, feel, right? Because I think even like Mike going through the pocket knives, he was saying there's a feel he likes. He likes to handle it, and maybe this one's heavier, this one's lighter. When you're making a knife for someone, I'm sure that's part of going through your mind. Yes. What is this person looking for, and how does that all balance out?
It's so funny. I put so much thought into the ergonomics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do like nice ergonomics, and I have like contour wheels that like I can make finger toils that are pretty comfortable. But at the very end of the day, I mean, it's a tool, so.
For you, like the knife you have right there, what do you love about that?
This one, I practiced a hollow grind on this one. I'd never done it before, so you can tell like the grind's kind of like curves in and out.
Yep.
And then I put a hamon to this quench pattern. So it's something that I don't always do, but it pulled it off pretty good. And this wasn't for anybody. I just made it to practice. So I made it to fit my hand. I didn't know how to hollow grind before this, so I practiced with this, and I pulled it off. So then, after I pulled this off, then I could offer, if a client wants a hollow grind, I could probably do that for them.
So the purpose of that knife, though, it's not a kitchen knife.
No, it's like just I would call it like a camp knife.
Camp knife. Okay.
I would always call my knives hunting knives until I had a vegan client, And then she's like, "Oh, I don't hunt. I don't want." And I lost
Right.
her as a client, and I was like, "I'm gonna call them camp knives."
No, but Daniel, you're right.
Brilliant.
A camp knife is 100%
Utilitarian.
legit.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I think we do just say, "Oh, the hunting knife,"
Yeah.
but the hunting knife really isn't good around a campsite.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like the handle's got to be really cool for you to make, because we spent all this time thinking that the blade, right?
And I'm telling you, I put a lot of thought into like the ergonomics. I really want them to hold onto it and like not lose grip.
Right.
But honestly, my end goal is I want a long lasting knife. I want it to be like a generational thing. Would be so cool to pass down. But yeah. So I try to do everything natural. I don't use any chemicals to treat it. I just use linseed oil, and to give it a finish. And I always like all my clients I offer free maintenance for. So whatever goes wrong, I always try to not make mistakes. So I know I have to fix it later.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, rare exotic wood would be nice. But in the beginning, I used anything. I went through pretty much a trial phase for like 5 years where I tried every material. But I found if you the money spent on a handle is nice. I mean, it really looks nice.
And do your clients select that, or do you, based on what they want, do you pretty much put that together for them?
Most people have a preference. Like, there's very few people that are like, some people are like, do you, man? Like, you're creative enough. But there's some people where they'll have a preference and they'll choose. But what I usually do is like, I'll have like 12 different woods usually stocked. And when it comes time to choose a handle, and the whole time I'm like texting back and forth to see what they want, like dimensions and what their purpose is, usually is how I make the knife. And then when it comes down to the handle, I'll give them a choice of like 10 different exotic woods. I sometimes use synthetic material too.
So question, everybody's hand's different, right? So we have a Paul, Paul Dalmas, friend of the show. Paul's got gigantic hands.
He does.
Like, he's just a big dude. So trying to get a chef knife that fits Paul's hand would be different than a chef's knife to fit Lisette's hand.
Yeah, like
right?
the first knife I made for Paul, I made him a barbecue knife. He wanted to cut brisket, and then when I shook his hand, I was like, this guy has got a big hand. So that was my reference. I was like, I gotta fit this guy's hand. But then I made one for his wife, and I was like, I'm not gonna make the same size handle for her.
Correct.
I don't know her, but she can't have a hand like his.
Dude.
Yep.
Do I need to use the restroom? Is it a quick break?
Sure.
Cool. Okay.
Did Paul tell you the story about this knife?
No.
In Alaska, you didn't hear the story?
Oh yeah.
Tell that story. I feel like that's a good.
All right. So
that Daniel had a part in you being here today.
You did. Yeah. This podcast wouldn't exist without Daniel in a weird sort of way. So, buddy Paul commissioned Daniel to make some camp knives for a couple of us. And we went to Alaska, to do some fishing. So we were out on a boat, and, long story short, the tides in Alaska are crazy, right? So the current was going one way and the wind was blowing another way, and the tide was coming in a different way. And the day before, a boat had sank, and some guys like barely survived, like literally like luck saved them. They ended up in the water in Alaska, which is not a good thing, and ended up spending a night on an island like miles away from where their boat sank. And it was like this crazy ordeal. So we go out fishing the next day. We find ourselves in this precarious situation where there's water about to come over the back of the boat, which was the exact same scenario that happened the day before that sunk these guys. So we're out fishing. I have the knife that Daniel made on my hip. Paul's driving. So the guy that commissioned it, he's driving the boat, and our buddy Jeff is there. So the three of us are on this boat. I think the boat's about to sink. Paul thinks the boat is in significant trouble. Jeff, who is kind of the most wild of the three, is like, we're good. We still got time, right? I'm kind of panicked because I'm a little more conservative than the other two. So the anchor line's going down. The boat is in danger of sinking.
You guys were taking on water?
Yeah, we couldn't move. The anchor was stuck. We were trying to get the anchor up, and we couldn't get the anchor up. This little fishing boat, three-person fishing boat. We couldn't get the anchor up, and so we're trying all these different things. And in any case, we're in this situation where now the boat is lower than the water that's coming towards the back of the boat.
Always a good situation to be in.
Yeah, not ideal. So the way I remember the story, and Jeff may remember it a little bit differently, is I see the rope going to the anchor. I pull out my knife. I hold it over my head and I yell, "I'm going to cut it." Right? Because I'm thinking like, well, I'm the junior guy of this group. Like maybe they're like, no, hold on, we're okay. So I hold this knife up. I say, "I'm going to cut it." And I don't even get the sentence finished. And Paul's driving, "Cut it." He's just yelling, "Cut it." So before Paul finishes his sentence, the knife comes down, hits that rope, and boom,
Damn.
just slices it. The boat pops up and
Off you go.
we continue on. Yeah. So, yeah, this knife, this very knife, the one that I took to Alaska, had on my hip the whole time, that
That's
Paul
pretty
commission
cool.
that you made, saved our lives for purposes of this
How do you
podcast.
feel about that, Daniel?
Oh, I feel like this is the best Pantoja knife commercial I've ever heard.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but that's one thing too. Like part of the 5 years when I was just learning, I torture tested them. I try to do the things that I knew would last the longest. I mean, there's ways to make knives sharper. There are ways to make knives harder. But I wanted something durable that would like serve a purpose, you know? And people are paying me their money, and their money's worth something. So I want them to have something that actually equals their value. So yeah, I'm so happy that happened with you. That it happened. That it
Like,
saved
dude,
you.
like seriously, how cool is that?
That
Like
is
you
cool.
made that. He's out there in duress,
Right.
and that actually just
Yeah. We didn't hit the line and it bounced back and the line was like still there. Like, I mean, it like
be like, damn it, Daniel.
legit, it went through like butter. Like it was fantastic. I mean, this thing's, it's sharp. Like it's,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
as time has gone on, I've gotten a little bit better with my technique, but I've always put like the raw product it's a durable knife. It's gonna be sharp. It's gonna last a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm so glad that you guys got out of that one.
you and me both.
So someone that's listening and they want to try to get into knife making, what equipment and gear do they need to start?
Basic things. You're gonna need a heat source. Cheap. You can make a cheap forge. Trust me, I've made so many cheap forges. If you want to go bare bones, you could get an angle grinder with some attachments and grind it that way. I actually know people still to this day that make knives that way, and they're pretty cool. I'd use them. And then you're gonna want some container to quench with oil. I use peanut oil, but you can use like knife specific oil. You can use vegetable oil, as long as like it's still a function, because you can't use it forever. You have to swap it out. So we deep fry turkeys Thanksgiving, and the whole year I used the leftover peanut oil.
So we didn't talk about the quench, right? So you're heating up the metal, you're pounding it out, you're getting your shape. Then it sounds like the quench comes at the end. And for people that are not familiar, that maybe have never seen Forged in Fire, what is the quench and why do we do it?
So that's the one part of the process where you want to be as patient as possible. And like I said, you're gauging temperature by sight. So I always kind of do it in the evening where it's a little darker, where I can see the colors pop a little more. So you're aiming for 1600 degrees. And where patience comes in is you have the thermal cycle. So you get to the temperature, which is ideal for quenching, and you pull it out, then you air cool it. Excuse me. And then you get the temperature back to like nothing. That's one cycle. Put it back in there, and you do it again. You do it a few times. I do it twice. Then you're gonna shock the metal. So what I do is I heat up a scrap piece of metal. I put it in my quench tank. I'm heating up the oil to like 300 to 400 degrees, and then when on your second or third cycle, when you're at 1600 degrees and at even heat, you quench it. So that changes the composition, like it restructures the molecules. So at that point, you're pretty much with a whole different element you're dealing with. So, but at that point, the metal is as hard as it's gonna get, but it's really brittle too. And I'm talking about you can drop a knife blade on the floor and it will crack. That's how brittle it is. So at that point, when I quench, I file check. So if the file bites, it's not hard. I mean, it has to be harder than the file. And so if it skates the file, you're good to go. I clean up my material, and then I take it to my very sophisticated toaster oven. I have a toaster oven where that's where I temper my knives. You can temper with the torch, but it's a little tricky because if it gets away from you, then you anneal it, and then sharpness is gone.
So what is the tempering?
So tempering is when you, so the molecules are really stressed because you shock the whole knife, you know? So what you do is you keep the best of both worlds. You keep the edge retention with the hardness, but then you soften it a little bit. You relax the molecules a little bit. So it could take a shock from hitting, because when you cut your knife, you probably hit the boat a little bit. If it was so fragile, it would just shatter. So you have to have a little bit, and then also you don't see it with your eyes, but when you swing, it's going to move a little bit. So you have to have a little bit of flexibility. but you can't.
So
lose
like
the
when
sharp.
Mike took that big swing at that rope, that's why it sliced right through.
Exactly, and you have to keep the edge, right? So like you have to have the best of both worlds. So that's when you temper it.
So just to recap to make sure I understand. So I'm going to heat my knife up, then I let it cool cool.
That's the thermal cycle.
Yep. Then I heat it up again to 1600-ish degrees.
If you can't tell what 1600 degrees is, right, you're new to this, you get a magnet. At 1600 degrees, it's non-magnetic. So if you have non-magnetics, you're good
the
to go.
more you know right there.
That's super cool.
Yeah, when I first started, I had a magnet next to my quench tank, and I wouldn't touch it because it's hot. I would just like rub it, and if it was grabbing, it was still not hot enough.
Wow.
Okay, so now I have it super hot. I'm going to immediately take this super hot piece of metal, and I'm going to dump it in oil that's considerably cooler.
It's like about 300. You want to shoot for 300 because you're shocking the material.
Right.
You want to ease it a little bit. You heat up your oil.
Okay.
And then from there.
But it's still a 1300 degree difference.
Right.
Like it is a shock.
Yeah. And for usually use hearing protection when I'm working, but at this point I take it off because you're listening for pings or cracks. It's really loud. You'll hear it. Oh. And more than anything, you probably have like tongs or you welded a piece of metal to it. So you'll feel it through. It's really drastic. You'll feel it and you hear it. So at that point, the oil's bubbling. It might flame up a little. And I usually keep it in there for as long as I could, but it's still malleable at that point. It's not brittle, not yet, because it's cooling down. So I take it out. By sight, I see how straight it is. Usually it's pretty straight. If it's not, you have seconds to straighten it out. If you have the guts, you'll hammer it. But I don't have the guts, so I always have my vise ready just in case. So while it's still a little malleable, and if it's bent, I put it in my vise and I straighten it out. And usually I just let it cool there until I can handle it with my hand. And that's when I file check. But you have a few seconds, it's still malleable. But if the cooler it gets, the more you can't manipulate it.
So it's the rapid cooling process. Like you said, it's reorganizing the molecules in the metal, which is making it super strong.
Right.
And during that process, as it's getting stronger, as it's cooling is when it's getting stronger, you can then tweak it and fix a bend or a warp or something.
Yeah, the whole composition of the metal changes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then when you said you check it with a file, so normally if you run a file across a piece of metal, the file digs in and takes little pieces of metal with it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're filing it.
Yeah, and you'll feel it bite. If it bites, it didn't harden.
I'm sorry, and tempering, the definition of tempering is adding in a bit of softness or flexibility to a very hard blade.
Yeah, through heat. You introduce heat. My method's not sophisticated. It's a toaster oven, but some people have thousands of dollars in a kiln, right? Like they have precise temperatures and they have like a formula where they follow. And I'm telling you, like when I get to that phase, I just I continuously monitor my material and I check through eyesight.
Can someone start making knives without a full forge setup?
You can, yeah, and a lot of it is DIY. So, and there's so many resources. Like there's just so many.
Yeah.
So with a small search, you can find out the best and cheapest way. I mean, Reddit, honestly, they'll give you a blueprint on how to do it.
What are some of the common mistakes that beginners make?
I'm sure with every hobby, it's just buying things that are so expensive that you won't use. Like for instance, if I bought like a $10,000 kiln, and when I could do the same thing,
it's not going to do right.
So I think like maybe.
No, I feel like that's a great point because starting hobbies, it is easy to overspend, right? And then all of a sudden, like you said, you have all this equipment. You're like, it's not really.
Yeah, like some stuff's useful, right? Like I'm sure like you could set up your garage to be like a little lab to make your beer, right?
Right.
Well, how much do you think Mike spent starting his?
I cheated and listened to your podcast.
Okay, so I honestly thought, I'm like, dude, you at least spent $2,000 to $4,000 because I feel like there's no way. I was gonna ask. I mean, both you guys are really. This is very, home brewing, making knives is part of the fun and the process. You're actually doing it, right? So if you just hit a button, like you said, and oh, my 805 comes out, or if you just hit a button and oh, my knife's ready. I would imagine you're losing a lot of what you love about your the process.
Yeah, I think half I don't know about you, but half the reason I do it is to keep this tradition alive.
Right.
It's like, I mean, there was a resurgence because of the show, but I feel like in my own way, and I do things like maybe a little harder, but it's fun. It's a tradition I'm keeping alive.
Yeah.
Right. The journey is just as important as the destination, right? Because you learn so much. You said you're making your own tools, and those tools are what you're using to make knives, right? So that's part of the journey. Like you have to start somewhere. So having those foundational building blocks that I learned now gives me a deeper understanding than someone that was going to get into it and say, I'm going to drop 10 grand so that I can hit a button and get an outcome, right? I understand it differently than that person might.
Yeah.
Because I had to figure out and understand exactly what each of these things is doing along the way. Similar to you figuring out, like, the first couple knives you made weren't great, by your own words. Like they weren't up to your expectations. But what it was that journey, you learned how to get better.
And you know, there's a purpose and use for everything. Like the people that do the self-automated beer, like, I mean, there's people that love that taste. Great. That's for them.
Sure.
There's people that spend so much money on their home forges that I'm talking about a ridiculous amount of money, and people love their work. So there's a purpose for everything. And I feel like the thing I learned about myself is like, the work I was producing, I was proud of, and that was just enough for me. And like I told you, like, there's lots of people that have had it for years. They're nice for years, and they keep coming back because I always sharpen my clients' knives.
Sure.
And I'm like, you know what? Your knife's in one piece. Cool. You know?
Oh, that's got to be tremendous feeling that, like, you know, your work is coming back to you. What you created comes back, and you get to check in and see it. And it's got to feel very fulfilling, I would imagine.
Yeah. I forgot to tell you guys my secret. Okay. This is how I know I'm done. Because
Here we go.
You can work something till forever, right? This is my secret. So once I'm like kind of close to finishing and I'm just like, oh, I don't want to turn this in, I want to keep it. That's when I'm like, okay, that's good.
Smart.
This goes into the private collection.
Yeah.
Right.
There's so many times where I was just like, oh, I don't want to give this up.
So kitchen knives, everybody listening obviously has a set of kitchen knives. When they dull out, how can we keep those lasting longer, or what is, how do we keep those going?
Yeah. So there's services to offer sharpening. They're pretty inexpensive. I know that a lot of people have like honing bars right in their knife blocks. That's awesome. And if you really don't mind grinding your own. Oh, there's like those the wheels that you bought. Mm-hmm. Those are awesome. Just if it's something you want to do yourself, just don't let them go too dull. But if you don't like doing it, there's some pretty cheap services like charge like $5 a knife. I would just don't let them get too dull because it can get dangerous.
Right.
So the honing bar. So you have your kitchen set, and it has that one non-knife.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a long bar, and you always see the chefs on Food Network, right? And that guy pulls out his chef knife, and he's like whack 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 whack. And he's just going super fast.
Do you have to do it that frequently?
I don't do it that way. I wish I could. It looks cool, but what I do is I just keep it consistent. So I'll probably I'll come forward like 10 times, but I'm estimating 17 degrees, right? That's what I'm shooting for. 17, like a matchbook.
For everybody listening, 17 degrees is the optimal sharpening
It is.
degree.
I mean,
all right, yeah.
It's like a match. If you can picture a matchbook.
Oh, a mat. Okay.
Yeah, like
I like
same
that.
Angle.
Ooh, I like that.
17 degrees.
Dude, that's
10 ways,
solid.
17 degrees other ways, sharp.
And you're good.
Yeah.
And how often do you need to do that?
So people, I do it for fun. So every time I cook in the kitchen, I'll hone it.
So every time.
Just because I want the muscle memory.
But honing is not sharpening.
It's not.
So tell people what the difference is.
So honing is when it's pretty sharp, and then you're just giving it a little tiny more edge. I mean, every time you use your knife, you're dulling it a tiny bit. So honing, you just kind of refine it a tiny bit just to get that job done. But when it's dull, honing won't do it. You have to actually sharpen it. You have to reshape the geometry of the bevel. So it's like it's just like honing is a quick job before you cut, and you can do it at any time just to get that much sharper. But sharpening is actually changing the geometry of the.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I thought when you use a knife, you have a knife edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it gets dull at first, because that point is no longer pointed, it starts to round over a little bit. And honing is pushing that point back straight.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Versus sharpening, when something gets so dull, it's no longer at a point. It's now like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is dull. You could hone that for 1,000,000 years. You're never going to get a point, right?
Totally.
You need to sharpen it and remove material to bring the point back.
Yeah, it's like I was telling you, just adjusting the geometry a tiny bit.
So that honing block or sword or whatever the hell it's called, rod, right? Every time you pulled a knife out to use it, if you ran it through that honing thing a couple times just to maintain your point, your sharpness,
right,
would probably prevent you from running things so dull that you had to get it sharpened again.
Right. And then like geometry plays a big difference. Like if you're going to make a sushi knife, right? A sushi knife's not going to be 17 degrees and it's not going to have two bevels. It's going to have one bevel and it's probably going to be more acute, like 10 degrees. So if you're going to do a camp knife, you can go like 20 degrees and you're not going to have, it's not going to be acute at all. It's going to be like an apple seed. So you gotta, that's one thing. It's like, if people tell me what's your intended use, that's enough information.
Wow. I've never even crossed my mind.
So there's different, when you buy a knife sharpening kit, right? Typically the ones that I've gotten will have different degrees based on what it is. So like the one that I always sticks out of my mind is like a fillet knife, like a fish fillet knife is like scalpel sharp, meaning that angle is super pointy.
Or like if you're going to sharpen a straight edge razor, that's going to have to be so sharp. Like that doesn't have any apple seed at all. It's going to be really acute.
Right. Versus like a camp knife, right? Like you said, you could go with the 20 degrees where it's going to be steeper. It'll be sharp. Right. That geometry will maintain over a longer period of time.
Correct.
Because the shallower we make that angle, the more likely it is it's going to bend over because there's not enough material to hold it.
And if people are vague or they don't really have an intended use, then 17 degrees is safe. That's a pretty common angle.
That's the general 17.
And like by muscle memory, I'm always there because it's just like, that's where I always have my hands, about 17 degrees.
Gotcha.
That's funny because my wife and I, one time we got sushi grade fish and couldn't even cut it.
No.
I mean, you saw our amazing knife set. It was all like, it was just like mutilated, right? And we're just like, we don't have the equipment to.
Well, I think most people don't realize that there's general maintenance that comes with a set of knives.
Right.
Like you can buy the best knives in the world, and after a year of using them every day, they're not going to be sharp. That's not a problem of the knife. It's just a lack of maintenance.
And if somebody's interested in knives, that's a good place to start. Like buy whetstones and see how much fun that is. And if you love it, maybe that's for you.
Yeah. So Daniel, this is my favorite part of the show. This is our Pick'em segment where you need to pick one or the other. Really, I think, and I have some good ones. So we're gonna start out. It's just gonna be like, this is just gonna be like knife. Just your preference on knives. So carbon steel or stainless steel?
Carbon steel.
Why carbon?
Holds an edge, and I understand it.
Yeah. So forge or stock removal?
Forge. You got to keep that tradition alive.
Yep. Tanto blade or drop blade?
I don't like the angles of tantos. It's kind of complicated to sharpen, so
drop blade.
Yep.
Full tang or hidden tang?
I know how to do full tang. Full tang. Hidden, you have some places that could fail.
Yeah.
And full tang's pretty foolproof.
Right.
So
I actually like the full tang.
So for people that don't understand what a tang is, they think it's the orange citrus drink from our childhood.
And I just found out 6 hours ago.
All right, fair enough. Explain tang.
So tang is the handle part, and a hidden tang would be like it wouldn't be as wide as the whole blade. It's like at a point. Sometimes it goes all the way through, but generally it's thinner and smaller. So I feel like on a full tang, that eliminates one failure factor.
Right.
It's not gonna fail you. So
yeah, good point. So a Bowie knife or a kukri?
Oh, I love a kukri. It's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I when I was practicing for the show, I made so many. I have so many of those. Yeah, they're such a cool design and cool history. I mean, they came from Nepal. I made one for one friend that's a Marine. He was a recon Marine.
Okay.
And there was a unit knife. I made him one. They're cool, but I just made so many kukris. They're so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Daniel, why should everyone explore their passion?
There's lots of things that are gonna hold you back. Lots of things, but you have to get a little bit out of your comfort zone, and you will surprise yourself. And then at that point you're not wanting or wishing anymore. You're actually doing it. So just get out of your comfort zone. Do it. You'll surprise yourself.
I totally agree. I mean, I think we've all been there, right? That whenever you try something new, there is that learning curve. It is difficult and it's hard, but you're right. Once you get over that little hump, it's super cool.
Great.
And Daniel, if anyone listening is thinking about getting into knife making, why should they get into that?
I would just say, like, it's a really way to keep an old tradition alive. There's lots of traditions that are bad that should go away, but I feel like the good ones are worth preserving. In my opinion, there's not going to be too many knife smiths. I think all are welcome, and that's where a lot of like journeymen that are like just learning, they're useful. Like we're keeping a lot of things alive. It's nice.
So if people were interested in reaching out to you, where could they contact you?
I do all my business on my Instagram, Pantoja Knives. Just like a catalog so they can look at my work.
So that's the best way for someone to reach
Yes.
you if they're interested, if they have questions, if they wanted to get into knife making or
Yeah.
potentially order a knife, it's through Instagram.
And Will Willits, if you listen, my email is the same, pantojaknives@gmail.
I think my biggest takeaway is we are going to get Will Willits. We're going to make this happen. I feel like somehow we're going to do this, Mike.
We can do it.
This is now like a calling of our show.
This might be our first homework assignment after a podcast.
Yeah,
It's
I think so.
We have a follow-up.
Like we need to make this happen.
We need to make it happen.
Right.
I like it.
Yeah,
So
I
I know there's somebody that we know. There's, again, 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah. So one of the big things that we premise on the show is like, the purpose of the You Should podcast is for people to try new things. Like everybody has a list of things they're like, oh, I wish I would have gotten into that or looked into that or done that, right? Everything from home brewing to making knives to I wish I would have bought a classic car back in the day, right? Like the lists are endless. But ultimately, when you want to get into something, all you have to do is ask for help, ask somebody to teach you or take their under wing or answer your questions. There is a lot of value in the premise of everybody knows somebody, right? So if you don't know somebody that makes knives or that's ever made a knife, you ask your friends, they may know somebody or they may know somebody that knows somebody, right? So like that whole 6 degrees of separation, the Kevin Bacon game, like that's a real thing. Like we are connected to everybody else, probably a lot closer than we realize. We just have to make our intentions known and put it out there and wait for the information to come back.
Yeah, and if you can't find a community, then there's so many resources. Like I think I was talking to you on the phone. The YouTube guided me through everything. Like when I was a mechanic, if I would have had YouTube, it would have been so easy. It can guide you through it.
Such a great point.
Right. So just make it happen. There's resources. I mean, if you can't find them, you just have to look a little harder. There's gonna be somebody you can ask. Yeah, of course. You just have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Give it a try. And like I said, yeah, it's gonna be scary, but that first step's scary. Then the rest is just gonna be easier and easier. You're gonna get better and better.
It's all about taking that first step at the end of the day.
It is.
I agree.
What do you think, Mike? Is that a wrap?
I think we're good. Yeah. If you have questions, if you make knives, if you're interested in knives, please drop us a comment. We will respond. We look at every comment that comes our way. We're very interested in what you would have to say.
Thanks, Daniel, for coming in. We appreciate you and your time, and we'll see you next time, everybody.